Alright, so this is part 2 to clearing with Xin Zhao and just clearing jungle camps in general. So we explained how to clear the blue buff camp, or we kind of just showed it. We didn't say how or why you do it. We just said what you should do. Now let's go into a little bit of theory. So you can, if you perfectly auto a camp and then move backwards on the blue buff, what you can do is you can auto, and the blue buff starts channeling, right? And then you move backwards and you auto again. And the blue buff never does anything. It never really responds. Now this is something you can't really do unless you have a lot of attack speed, or if you are pretty much doing very special tricks to make sure the blue buff doesn't aggro onto you. This is almost impossible to do consistently. The point is, though, you don't need to do this because you don't really lose that much health anyway. But the most important thing to take away from this is that there's different sequences of auto attacks you can trade. So you can trade 1 for 0. And this one is very hard, so we're not using this, but the alternative is to do 2 for 1. Now let's say on the red buff, this can get quite hard with certain champions. Not with Xin Zhao. With Xin Zhao you can do this on the red buff as well. But if you can't, then you go for example, the one that's in the skill cap video. In the skill cap video, you get 3 for 2. Now, I don't know if there's ever any other sequences you need than this. I mean, let's be real here. The worst would be 1 for 1 on Gromp, so let's insert that afterwards. So next would be 1 for 1. Yeah, that's the absolute worst. What can I say? So if, let's say, the Gromp has more attack speed than you, right, etc., then you can use 1 for 1. Now, what matters here are the ratios. They're in descending order. So this one, the ratio between you and camp, right? This is the ratio between the two, the auto attacks. The auto attack ratio is infinite here. It's 2.0 here. It's 1.5 here, and it's 1.0 here. It's in descending order, right? So this one, you would need so much space to kite around, and you often find yourself wasting a little bit of time between one auto attack. So this one isn't always the best for fast clears. This one is. I mean, it undoubtedly is. There's no way you're going to lose time with this one. This one is like, if you can do this, it's always a good option. Alright, so now you know all these things. Let's actually get into the clear. So,
you don't need double.
This game.
Alrighty, let's get started. So there should be no, like, look at this, right? So as soon as this buff spawns, if you wanted to E, you should have already done it. You should be spamming it. So you shouldn't be using the indicator. You should be, like, if you're using indicators, I'm using indicators as well. Most people don't. You would be spamming Shift E and just trying to get that down as soon as possible. But you want to make sure you auto beforehand, because you already have an auto charged up. So you're wasting E time. So it's like you're wasting half a caster worth of gold. You're wasting like half a second. But with the half a second that this blue buff is spawning here, you're wasting more than a second. So that's, you know, you can see how fast this goes, right? Now, after you auto, you want to be kiting back. And the two reasons for that are that you might be asking, why would you kite back if you don't care about health? You only care about time, right? The thing is, where do you want to be next? You want to be over here somewhere, right? You want to be somewhere in this general area. So you need to get there. Now, there are times where you're literally, you have this timing sequence, right? And the blue buff has this timing sequence as well that's different from yours, right? So the thing is, when you auto attack, and you have these little frames right here where you're just waiting, you could be moving, right? Right? Moving creates value. Every second of distance you cover is 8 gold. So this movement here, if you move here for half a second, that's 4 gold. You move here again, 4 gold. You move here again, 4 gold. You move again, 4 gold. You can see how that compiles very, very quickly over a large sum of camps, right? That's just cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. You're getting a lot of time, a lot of theoretically gold, because I can clear one camp more in the time that you're clearing these camps. And that is almost 100 gold just straight up from clearing faster. And that all comes from these little components where I move, and you stand still, and stand still again. So let me show that with this one. Look at this. Auto, move. Auto, auto, move. Auto, auto, move. See that? So this is during a time where I wouldn't be doing anything, right? See that? And here I didn't even do it perfectly, so I could have won more than half a second more than I did in this video. But it was pretty, it gets pretty hard to do beyond that point. Like, if you try it, it's gonna be pretty hard to not deplete the courage bar and have to move back in, which is really bad. So anyway, so you did start Q, however, let me see the smite. Okay, the smite is also fine. Now you don't have to kill the entire camp, like you can leave a little bit for the E. I don't know if it's, I think it saves a hit on the wolf camp. But these are just little details. At least the kiting part and the animation canceling is most important. What I want you to try is to... I can't clear an entire blue buff 1 for 0. So the first auto is super easy. And then you do a 1 for 0 auto, it's super hard to make sure that it doesn't aggro you. And the second one, super hard. Now, I can sometimes manage to do this twice. Maybe I've done this, like, maybe this I've maybe done 10 times. Maybe this I've done, like, you know, maybe I've succeeded twice. I don't think I've ever. Maybe 0 or 1 time. Like, this is getting really, really hard. Like, I succeed, let's say my success rate is, like, a quarter. So, this doesn't really happen a whole lot. Like, this is already pretty rare. This is very rare, excessively rare. But the point is, you can do it. You can do it. And what you need to do is you need to practice your animation. So you stand still against a buff, and you right-click, right? You right-click, and then you move away immediately. After, let's say, 5 frames of your little spear. And then you do the same thing, and then you go for, let's say, 7 frames or whatever. Like, you last it a little bit longer. And then you do it again, and then you go for 9 frames. And then eventually you hit that point where you actually channel the auto attack, and you're right on that verge, right? Because right now, you're spending, like, a lot of time waiting after. And this can be a huge problem in kiting, because then if you try and move back well after you've autoed, then it's already started channeling an auto on you again. Which happens with the red buff, because the 2 for 1 on the red buff is actually really hard. Like, it's not as hard as 1 for 0 on the blue buff, but it's still pretty hard. So, it's like, oh, yep, see that? Like, it's like, that takes like half a second, where you're just like, nope, 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 yep, right? You can see, like, go, right? It's like, it needs to be crisp. It's like auto cancel, right? It has to be, because it's not a reactionary thing. You know in advance when it's gonna hit, so it shouldn't take the usual reaction time of a human, right? You just time it. You just time ahead of time, like just about here it's gonna hit it, and that's when I issue my movement command. I can see it charging in and then click, right? All right. And then here, because you're already halfway into the red buff, I haven't really done a lot of experiments with this, but I think it's more efficient to auto QE. But again, those are details. Those are details. Let's not worry about those too much. So if you use your E, so here if you use your E, you get 1 second off the cooldown, which again, 1 second. It all counts, right? All these little seconds over time have added up to well over 20 seconds of difference. So all these little things. Half a second, 1 second, half a second, 1 second.